Hi, and welcome to the WTG Tidelands Webinar. This is Patty from WTG. I'm happy to have with us today Andy Asitis, who is our own top-notch nationally certified floodplain manager, and Andy's going to run through the webinar with you. So we're going to give the controls over. You with me, Andy?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, here we go.
All right, everybody, we're going to be talking about Tidelands today and kind of the implications for realtors. Again, my name is Andrew Asitis, and I'm here with Patty Casaza. All right, so Tidelands, we're going to go through the general definition of a tideland, which is all lands that are currently and formerly flowed by the mean high tide of a natural water body. Tidelands, contrary to popular belief, are subject to change via erosion or accretion. Erosion would actually go to the state. So if land erodes away, that land is now owned by the state regardless of what the claims line looks like. Accretion would go to the upland owner. So if any land accretes or kind of gets placed in front of your lot, that land goes to you as the upland owner. Tidelands, also known as riparian lands, are the lands in which the state asserts its rights to, hence the term riparian rights. So you kind of hear those three terms used interchangeably: tidelands, riparian rights, and they're all kind of referencing the same idea. We kind of began asserting our claim in New Jersey a long time ago, and it kind of started when we gained our independence, and heavily kind of we began down the road in the 1800s there. But it wasn't actually, the claims line itself wasn't actually delineated until the 1970s and early 80s via the Tidelands Conveyance and Overlay maps. The conveyance maps are used primarily for the purpose of identifying approximate locations of grants, leases, or licenses, and the overlay maps are kind of just a representation of the claims line itself. So here we're going to look at some areas of erosion throughout the state. This is an area down in Down Township. You can see here, this is 1977 aerials. We got the yellow area here as the claims line, and it generally matches the shoreline as we see it in 1977. Fast forward to 2012, and you're seeing here that there's about almost 1,000 feet of erosion that occurred. So even though the claims line appears to be in the middle of the water here, the state is actually going to be claiming to the current mean high water line here as the area is subject to erosion. Now we're going to look at some areas of accretion, and this is Wildwood Crest, 1977 aerials. Again, you can see here that the claims line is kind of matching the kind of wet line on the beach. You can see the waves crashing up, and that's, they're kind of congruent in the situation. Fast forward to 2012, and you can see that the mean high water line is actually all the way back here. So we got about 820 feet of accretion here, accretion going to the upland owner there. So the kind of idea of tidelands are lands that are, kind of held in the public trust. So, there's a education fund that this money is deposited into, and it's supposed to be utilized. Since it's our public land, since we're the ones, as members of the, public here that own it, this land is actually our land, and it goes towards our education, right? They can be, the right to use this land can be actually purchased or rented back from the state in the form of several instruments. So we'll go over those now. So the three most common instruments that you will see as real estate agents dealing in, these types of transactions are riparian grants or revocable license and a statement of no interest. Start with riparian grants here. The grants are kind of the strongest of the documents because it's actually a deed from the state of New Jersey for the sale of its formerly flowed tidelands. And again, it usually only addresses upland claim on, a particular property, unless it's an old tidelands conveyance or tidelands grant where they used to still actually grant open water, in which case, potentially you could have a grant that extends out into the water abutting your property. Those are, kind of less likely documents to see, and they're definitely not issued in this day and age. And the benefit of a grant is that it is really a true conveyance from the state to the adjacent upland owner. So they are, in fact, selling you the right to utilize that land. So it's not, a rental, it is a sale. Revocable licenses, on the other hand, are exactly the opposite in certain respects. They are a short-term rental from the state to the adjacent upland owner for the use of its currently flowed tidelands. Again, just a rental, not a conveyance. These instruments are usually issued for docks, piers, bulkhead extensions, marinas, dredging, and utility lines. And they're exactly as they sound. They are short-term rentals, which are revocable. So they have a little less strength as far as ensuring title is concerned, because they are revocable. And then statements of no interest. So it's basically, an SNI, which is the common name for a statement of no interest, and the acronym is an official document stating that a property or area is free of Tidelands claim. And they're usually issued in kind of three situations. When a property is in the proximity of claim, but the property isn't actually affected. So it's kind of an insurance document. The upland owner says, all right, well, I'm close. I want to make sure that the state isn't going to, have any issues with this in the future. I want to get a statement of no interest to reaffirm the fact that I am not claimed. The second kind of most common situation where SNI would be issued would be where a prior grant releases the claim. So there's, let's say hypothetically, there's a 1905 grant that releases the claim, but there's some ambiguity in the description or the grant mapping itself. And again, it's kind of acts as an insurance document. The upland owner can say, all right, well, there's some question as to the coverage of this grant. Let me get an SNI from the state to kind of identify the fact that this old grant was meant to convey and that I have nothing to worry about. And then the third situation where an SNI would be issued would be a situation of incorrect mapping. So the state incorrectly mapped your property as being claimed when in fact it isn't. And that is definitely the least likely of the three instances. And there's kind of multiple impacts on a real estate transaction that we'll go through. The biggest of which is a property that has outstanding claim without any type of riparian grant to address that claim. This property effectively has a cloud on the title similar to a lien. And that's obviously raises some issues because in a lot of cases, mortgage companies want to address that before closing, whether it be by holding monies in escrow appropriate for the approval of a grant, or actually getting the grant before the transaction occurs, which is happens less often because the process is kind of lengthy to go ahead and get a riparian grant. One kind of caveat to all this is that there is no Tidelands police. There's no body that says, no governing body that says you have to extinguish claim before a property changes hands. There's no law that is written that requires that. It's really just the lenders protecting their investment and not really wanting to purchase a property that has, a claim on the property. And some kind of instrument-specific situations that have impact on the real estate transaction, as far as grants are concerned, would be you have to make sure that you check all four corners of your property. The grant must cover the entire legally recorded parcel. So if you have, a lot in 1950 that had a grant on it and it was a 50 by 100 lot, and, somewhere along the line after that, you purchased 25 feet from your next door neighbor that was sans grant. Well, now 25 feet of your 75 by 100 lot is now, not covered under that grant, and definitely something that should be considered. Bulkhead extensions we see a lot too. A grant will cover to a specific bulkhead line. The bulkhead is replaced and new fill is installed. Well, the grant doesn't cover that new, that new area that was kind of bumped out there, and that's definitely something that comes up quite often. And then validity of a grant. So this is something very, kind of simple that it gets overlooked a lot of times. You got to make sure that the grantee is the upland owner of the parcel at the date of issuance. It's boilerplate verbiage in every single Tidelands conveyance or Tidelands grant that's issued, but it's something that's often overlooked, and you definitely want to make sure that that is, you kind of dot your I's and cross your T's on that. And this is all criteria that has to be met before a grant can be considered to clear the title. So until you made sure that all these, kind of situations are addressed, you want to make sure that, they're not assuming anything, and that, clear title isn't issued before, they check into these things. So this is kind of an illustration of a situation that I was just talking about. You can see here there's, an old grant that actually covered the old lot as it used to stand here. At some point, this area, this extra 20 feet was purchased from the adjacent property. That area is subject to claim, and it is not covered in this original grant. And that's definitely a situation that you want to watch out for, and should be addressed before closing. This is the verbiage taken directly from one of the Tidelands conveyances that identifies the whole validity of a grant, that the grantee must be the upland owner at the date of issuance. So you can see here, and also provided that if the said Henry Wickham is not the owner of the lands adjoining lands underwater hereby granted, then and in that event, this instrument and conveyance so far as the same binds to the state, and all covenants herein on the part of the state shall be void as affecting any part or parts of the said land which adjoins land not owned by the said Henry Wickham. So he has to be the upland owner of any and all portions of the property being conveyed at the date of issuance, or it's void. Revocable licenses. One of the biggest things with licenses, again, is that it isn't a true conveyance. So in most cases, title insurance cannot be issued over top of a license because it can be revoked at any time, and that has to be considered. You have to also check that the license is in good standing. So you want to make sure that the license is current, i.e. it hasn't expired yet. Most licenses are, 7 to 10 year licenses. And if you've gone past that time period, well, the license is no longer valid. And then another kind of, thing to check into is the fact that the license is actively being paid. So let's say you have a license on a property that you're dealing with a real estate transaction on, and the license says, well, it's valid until 2025. Well, you're within that window. However, is the upland owner currently paying the license? If they are not, the state is going to be looking for back rental from the purchaser in order to get things squared up. And the same thing with an expired license. If your license expired and you got a transaction in the works that a license has expired on, well, and if it expired 3 years ago, they're going to be looking for back rental for those 3 years where the license had expired and no one renewed it. So that's definitely something that you want to make sure that you kind of check into. And one of the biggest situations or kind of mars that we see with licenses would be that the dock is actually built within the license area. So a lot of times we'll see licenses are issued, and everything was followed from A to Z. Every I was dotted and every T was crossed. But then when the engineer went and produced the dock, they didn't put it in the license inside the licensed area. So in that case, it doesn't matter that you have a license, because the dock that is occupying the State Riparian Claim land is not within the licensed area. So that doesn't really do you too well. And again, even when this criteria is met, title insurance cannot be issued for a licensed area as it is revocable. And just like anything, or most things in the real estate transaction, kind of knowing your barriers and your hurdles from the beginning, when they're early in the transaction, is extremely important to a successful deal, because you can either start, kind of working towards getting these required documents, right off the bat once you, take the listing, or once the deal kind of starts moving, or at least you understand the kind of issues you might run into with the property. And in most of these cases, this is not something that you as a real estate agent are going to be able to take the bull by the horns and figure all this out on your own. It's really important that you kind of surround yourself with qualified professionals. So you want a good title company that understands how to address these Tidelands issues, and an attorney that that is not naive to all these situations, and then an accurate determination is obviously a important thing as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about our determinations. We'll go over an example as well. One of the biggest benefits is the fact that we're certified and insured. So these are insured for $2 million per event. So we stand by what we determine and the status that we put on the report. And another thing that sets us apart as far as the physical report is concerned is visual verification. So we're providing a screenshot or several screenshots in the situation of a claim tied that kind of give a physical picture of what's going on. So you're looking at what our experts look at when they produce the determination there. And the first screenshot is usually aerials, tax map, claims line. Second screenshot is just street layer and claims line. Third screenshot is the conveyance map, claims line, and street layer. Kind of gives you a picture of what's going on and helps you, kind of rationalize it a little bit. Another thing that we have, kind of perfected here is our own geocoding. So we're not buying geocoding from TeleAtlas or one of the big, data warehouses. We are maintaining our own geocoding. We're scanning updated tax maps for as many municipalities as we need to during the year to kind of keep things up to date. We also provide approximate claim percentage. So we're giving you an approximate percentage of the property that's affected by the state riparian claim, which is helpful for, kind of trying to determine how much money to hold in escrow, so on and so forth. In the end, it's definitely best once claim is identified to have a survey produced because they're going to produce it on, the legal description, and they're going to be able to give you a bit more accurate of a claim percentage, but this is definitely a good starting point. And then we also provide any instrumentation with our report. There is no added fee involved there, and we provide it as a courtesy to our clients so that they have all the information, kind of right out of the gate there. And this is just an example of one of our Tidelands determinations. You can see this is the cover sheet, identifies the property in the Tidelands map. Then we have a second sheet which reiterates the property information and any grants, leases, or licenses that we may have identified. In this case, it's actually a grant that we have identified. And this is that visual verification I was talking about. So you can see here there's a tax map, aerials, and the yellow area is the claims line. This is a zoom, a kind of a little bit of zoomed out version of that with the aerials turned off. And here's the conveyance map itself identifying the particular grant that affects your property. This is a partial report, so it's just a quick report that gives the current assessment data with a snippet of the tax map. And then here's the grant itself. So you got the body of the grant, and then you also have the grant map itself. This is extremely useful when a survey needs to be produced, and just kind of really nails down the location of the granted area. And that's, the basics of the state riparian claim. Any questions or concerns, you can feel free to give us a call. And I think that's it for me. I'll turn it back over to Patty, and we'll continue on.
Great. Thanks, Andy. And let me just get myself back here and join the screen. Get this back up for everybody here. So ordering is simple. So just always remember myfloodstatus.com. Go to myfloodstatus.com, enter the property address, and then just follow the prompts to complete your order. The cost is $50. Includes everything that Andy talked about. The thing that's super important to remember is you're not only getting an accurate report that's insured, but you're getting the team, and the team will help you to understand what the report says. So you would order that report. You'll receive it within 2 to 5 hours. Unless it's claimed, it may take a little bit longer. And then once you have that report in hand, just call the office, and we'll give you the contact information here. So for questions, feel free to email us at webinars@wtgroupllc.com. Any questions that you have after you have watched the webinar, or you can call us at 855-653-5663. So I hope this was really helpful for everyone. We appreciate your feedback too, so feel free to email us your feedback on the webinar, things you think we might could do better, or how valuable you found it. And I wish you all a good day, and we'll be talking to all of you soon. Okay, take care.
Take care.